The Gemara tells us in Eruvin, it's one of the tractates, that after a person passes away and his record is presented before him, no one would deny that the information is accurate and the evidence is irrefutable, and he would admit that it was him who actually crossed those lines, to the point that the person realizing this, he will shed tears which the equivalent of rivers. It'll touch him so deeply that he feels that he did things which are so detrimental to himself, and to the point of he's worse than a masochist. Worse than that. He destroyed himself. But you only realize that when it's too late. The challenge is when things aren't so clear and you have the struggle between the physicality, the inclination of the body, and the intellect. We're speaking about a person who believes in God. But as much as we believe, we're pulled in 6 different directions. The Rabbi Luzzatto writes in Path of the Just that when we come into this world, it's a forefront battle. Wherever we turn, we're challenged. You're sitting and studying Torah, you're challenged. You're on vacation, you're challenged. You're at work, you're challenged. When you sleep, you're challenged. Challenged every moment of our life. From the time we come to existence, we're inhaling this addictive type of atmosphere which draws us in a direction which is not where we should be. And we have the ability to put the brakes on. It's a beautiful word from the Chavetz Chaim. You know, when you put the Sefer Torah back, there's a verse we say from Proverbs. The Torah is an Eitz Chaim. It's a tree of life which we grab hold on. So he says, what is it analogous to? It's analogous, a person falls into a raging river. And as he's going down the river, he realizes if he doesn't somehow grab onto something to pull himself out of that water, which has this overwhelming current, he's going off the falls, and his life's going to end. So what does he do? He tries to get close to the bank, and as he gets close to the bank, he sees there's a branch sticking out of a tree. He grabs onto the branch. But if you grab onto the branch, the force of the water keeps going that you can only hold on so long. Eventually, you're gonna let go of that branch. So what does the person do? That before he tires, he takes the branch and he pulls himself closer to the trunk. And eventually, what does he do? He wraps his legs and arms around the trunk. So as much as the water pummels him, he's secure on the trunk of the tree. So the Chavetz Chaim says, Eitz Chaim la marzikim bo. The Torah is a tree of life, but you got to hold on to it. You got to embrace it. And the more you embrace it, regardless of all these storms and these winds and these typhoons and these, whatever you want to call it, and you're being pummeled in every direction, if you're holding on to that tree for dear life, you're going to be saved. But when it's a tree of life, you got to hold on to it. It's not enough to be just abstract intellectualism. I know what it's all about, but if it means you have to actualize it, you got to live it. You have to grab onto it. And if you grab onto it, then you're able to what? To be secure and not be swept away. Otherwise, you're swept away. And God forbid, you go over the cliff. You go down, you go off the falls. That's what you do. Many years ago, there was a person, his name was Rav Noach Weinberg. He's the founder of Eshet Torah. He was a Baal Tshuva Yeshiva in Israel. And he used to say, I don't know if it was his original word or not, how do you tell the difference between a dead fish and a living fish? A dead fish floats downstream. A living fish swims upstream. That's the difference. A living fish who understands and has ability, has power, has the ability to go upstream. The salmon in Alaska, they swim upstream. The fish is dead, it goes downstream. That's the way it is. So if you have any inkling of understanding of what you're dealing with, that you're on a battlefront and a forefront battle from every single direction, you can't let yourself to be distracted for a moment. You got to secure yourself. Otherwise, the moment you have a moment of weakness, you're not going to hold on anymore. And you never know where it's going to pull you. You ever see pictures of a tornado? Sometimes tornadoes, if a person survives it, sometimes the house is picked up in the air and it's planted miles down the road and it's planted somewhere else. And the person somehow miraculously survives. It's supplanted it elsewhere. You never know. If you allow yourself to be drawn in, you never know where you're going to end up. You may land on your feet, but you may not land in the right location for your feet. You may land into quicksand. It's not a solid base. Or you may land on a thin sheet of ice, and the slightest movement, you break through, you drown, God forbid. And that's what life's all about. We got to find secure ground. You look for the upper ground, not for the lower level, where you're vulnerable and you're exposed to many things. People live on the river, they can't get insurance because every few years there's floods and those houses are washed away. So what do people do? They build the houses further up the hill. So even if the water rises, the house is at a distance, he could get flood insurance because it's minor, the damage. There's nobody's perfect in life. We're victimized to a degree, but even though we're victimized, we're to a degree that we're able to recover. Sometimes the best lesson is a mistake because you learn from your mistake, you make a correction, and you take every precaution because of the clarity that you achieve. You don't go back there. You eat in a certain restaurant, and you don't know the difference, and it's rated A, B, C, D, F, and you think F stands for fine, the finest. You don't realize F means you're bordering on food poisoning. The guy goes into the restaurant, he orders the main course. 2 hours later, he's in the emergency room. They say, you got botulism and you have food poisoning. Get you on intravenous antibiotic, right? Or otherwise you're not going to be here tomorrow. Next day, the guy has a short memory. He's back to the restaurant. Are you out of your mind? Well, F stands for fine, the finest. It also stands for finito. Finito, it's almost over. You're going to be gone, though, right? That's what it is. But people don't learn. So sometimes the greatest favor is when you fail and when you realize your vulnerability, you know not to go back there. And you take precautions and you make fences. And that's a smart man. That's what a smart person does. Rather than going back into the feed bag and actually, God forbid, asphyxiating yourself and choking on that, whatever it may be. Known as kiseitze. Kiseitze l'mulchama al yavecho. It doesn't say kiseitze lin mulchama. With a shva, it says la mulchama. When you go out to the war of wars, the ultimate war, that's what it speaks about. So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, which is a semi-Kabbalistic commentator, explains it based on illusion, what it's alluding to. When a person's born into this world, you're about to confront the greatest war, which the ultimate enemy is out to kill you, is out to destroy you. Who's that? The evil inclination. He's out to mislead you, to distract you, to delude you, that you think day is night and night is day. And therefore you have to prepare yourself. And there's so many things in life which are so attractive and so alluring and so addictive. You got to keep arm's length from all the stuff. That's Kisei La Milchama. It says not Le, the ultimate. La means the ultimate war. And that's really echoing the words of the Rabbi Lutzato in the Silsa Sharp Path of the Just. When you're born into this world, we're on real time. We hear the music. The music is playing. Now, how do you hear the music? Is it, God forbid, the death march? Or is it something which is something which brings joy to you? But God forbid, the Nazis, Yamach Shmam Zichram, if you ever read about it, they wanted to make a mockery of the Jews. They had certain Jews who knew how to, who were very professional musicians, and they played in the camps. And sometimes they took Jews and they hanged them publicly for whatever they did. And they'd have a whole musical procession, taking them in public, they would hang them. That's what they would do. If you don't know what the music is associated with, you think the celebration going on here. This is the ultimate, this is the death march. The music sounds very appealing and touches you very positively. When you realize what that music is associated with, it's worse than dread. It's interesting, in the United States, they used to have the death penalty, and it was death by electric chair. What was the electric chair? I don't know if you ever saw a picture of an electric chair. It was a chair, looked like a desk chair, swiveled, and they would harness the person to the chair very strongly. They would harness his hands to the side of the chair, and they put a leather hood over his head. And then they will put a 500,000 volts to him, or whatever it was. And he would literally be the body didn't have the capacity to take that kind of electricity. Literally, his eyes would pop out of his head. His internal organs would be literally burnt. And he would convulse at a level that nobody even want to look at it. That's how terrible it was. But before that, they would give the person anything he wants. You could order your last meal from the best restaurant in New York. They put you on a tuxedo with a pair of patent leather shoes, like you're going to a wedding. But the guy didn't realize he's going to be buried in that, with the tux in the coffin. Except when they finish with him, he doesn't look like a human being anymore. That's exactly what it's about. If you video just that part segment before he's put to death, everybody envies this guy. They bring him in, he has a waiter serving him, it's 25-course meal. But this is what they call the Last Supper. Pele, Yoeitz. This is the Last Supper. This is the end of the road. God forbid. And that's exactly what life's all about. The evil inclination sells you a bill of goods, believing you're going to the top of the mountain. Chavetz Chaim gives a beautiful allegory. There was this person who moved into a town, and there was like a person, sinister Machiavellian person, and he deceived people. And he goes to this person, he says, you know something? I'm going to share a secret with you, few people know. In the city dump, it's about 200 feet high, a block wide. There's a treasure buried in the middle of that dump. That treasure is worth a fortune. And I would like to take you there to show you where it is. And when you retrieve that, you'll be the richest man in this whole region. And he's working on it for years. And the person says, how could I believe this? But he convinces them. But he says, we can only go to the top of the heap, the disposal heap, on a moonless night, where it's not illuminated. See, the person goes with him, climbs this mountain of refuse, and he says to the person, go to the center. And you just have to put your hand into the center, you'll be able to pull out this treasure. As he goes to the center, he doesn't realize he starts sinking in. And he's sinking into this refuse heap. And he realizes with a few minutes, his head is going to be below the surface. And once that happens, he suffocates. He suffocates in all this refuse and all this garbage. And he hears this person walking away, cackling and laughing like some kind of monster. Then he deceived him. For years he's been working on it. Finally got it. He got it. But when the guy is sinking, it's too late. He's going at a rate. It's just a question of time before it goes above his head, and then it's over. Rav Chaim says that's exactly the evil inclination. He could work on you for a lifetime, and he doesn't give up. Keeps chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. And ultimately, he gets you to a point, he introduces you, go in. You go in, he pulls the floor from under you. Once that happens, you're in free fall, God forbid, your life is over. Your spirituality basically is not coming back. You're at a point of no return. And that's the reality of life. And you see it. There's a story in that book I mentioned, Lieutenant Birnbaum, that after the war, he liberated the camps with Eisenhower and so on and so forth. He came to Paris. When the American army came into Paris, the joy of the Parisians was so, because the Nazis were driven out, because there's a picture of the Nazis coming into Paris, going through the Arch de Triomphe over there. And now you have American tanks, American soldiers going through, and all the Parisians are waving and celebrating and singing and so on and so forth. American soldiers are throwing cigarettes to the people, diff candy to the people, whatever it is. And he's part of this liberation of Paris, this Lieutenant Birnbaum, and he meets a person. And the person's name is Schreiber. Schreiber. Schreiber in Yiddish means a scribe. And he says to the person, his interesting name, he says, by the way, are you related to the Chassam Sofer? Chassam Sofer was one of the leading Torah sages in the 1800, early part of the 19th century. He was a son-in-law of Reb Kiva Eger, one of the leading Torah sages in the world. He says, yes. I forgot what his first name was. His name, he's a descendant. Okay? He has a little more, he speaks from a little voice, but what do you do? What do you do? He says, I run a burlesque house in Paris. Whatever that burlesque house is called, famous burlesque house. He runs it. When he heard that, he said he felt like vomiting. Here you're priding yourself. You're the grandson of this holy rabbi. And you run a burlesque house, which is world-renowned, whatever that is. I mean, how could you even, you want to conceal it, your pedigree, okay. But you could say both things simultaneously. That means the guy is so far gone, his nerve endings, spiritual nerve endings have been totally numbed, where he doesn't even realize it. He doesn't even see that it's contradictory. You can pride yourself, you're this holy rabbi's grandson, and you're in the pits. You're wallowing in infectious spiritual waste. That's where you are. But this happens, and it could happen to anybody. Nobody is in a safe place unless you create your safe haven. And that's the reality of life. Person is a proliferator of pornographic material. Pornographic, he has no share in the world to come. Why? Because since there's a Torah violation, you can't put a stumbling block before other people. If you're there corrupting society with this kind of information, you're held accountable for all the corruption that you bring about. You're a menace to society. What do you mean? But they want it. They desire it. I couldn't care what kind of businessman he is. But what service is he providing? These people are all forfeiting their souls. That's what they're doing. And he's the provider. The Rav Chaim cites a ton of Eliyahu. This is about Eliyahu Hanavi. There was a great rabbi. His name was Rav Levi. He's one of the rabbis of the Talmud. And he met Elijah the prophet, and Elijah the prophet says, I want to show you something. He takes him down a street, and there's a market. The market is desolate. And there's signs, freshly slaughtered venison, 10 cents a pound. 10 cents a pound. And you have the vendors there with the freshly slaughtered meat, quality meat. Place is empty. No takers, nobody's interested in buying the venison. He says, now I'm taking down another market. But 2 blocks away, he hears the sound, the screaming, the pushing, and the tumult. He gets close, he sees people climbing over one another. They're fighting to get to the front. Big sign. Putrid, decayed dog meat, $20 a pound. And they're fighting over it. He says, doesn't make any sense. Freshly slaughtered venison, 10 cents a pound, no takers. Putrid, infectious dog meat, $20 a pound. There's not enough that they're fighting over. Does that make sense? Say, Elijah the prophet says, I want to explain. That's what this world is all about. How many people are breaking down the doors to study Torah, to do mitzvahs? We're talking about something which has unlimited value. Unfortunately, there aren't many takers. You go to wherever we spoke about, other stuff, a comedy club, or this or that. You can't even get in. You got to make a reservation 3 weeks in advance to get into the comedy club. Over there, they don't speak too much Torah there. And the entrance fee doesn't make a difference. They're willing to pay it. Does it make sense? It makes sense if you understand the vulnerability of a human being and to what degree he can be addicted and his capacity to be drawn into this. You understand this could happen. It's like a person becoming, God forbid, a drug addict, takes the majority of his paycheck and puts it into drugs or into gambling, and he lets his family go hungry. He deludes himself somehow, but that's the reality of life. Just to end, there's a mitzvah a Jew has to maintain his health, Torah obligation. You have to maintain your physicality. So he says that if a person has an obligation to maintain his physicality, which is only a means, it's only to facilitate spirituality. So how much more do you have to be cognizant and responsible to protect your spirituality? It's what we call a kal v'chomer. So definitely, it's a Torah obligation. If you're obligated for what's only temporal, something what's eternal, which is invaluable, which is the soul, there's no question how much more you're responsible. But people don't get it. They don't get it. Again, why? Because we have this Achilles heel. The Achilles heel is called evil inclination. And when he lets you smell the coffee, so to say, it's not coffee. It's something else. And you become totally confused. And you see night is day and day is night. And once that happens, it's like years ago they had the psychedelic drug. Person took it. He walked out the window, off the roof. He thought he was walking on air.